Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to see you all as you join us. What an important and a moving experience we have for you this afternoon. I am Rabbi Sarah Berman. I am Director of Jewish Culture and Programming here at Central Synagogue. Yom Yerushalayim is a holiday that we have celebrated in new ways, thoughtful ways, considered ways for the last several years with our friend, Cantor Rabbi Shani Ben Or in Jerusalem. We are going to be hearing from Shani as we begin our program today, and then shift our attention to our friends from Encounter, who will bring different perspectives on the life of Jerusalem to all of us here this week of Yom Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem Day. Before we begin, I would like to introduce my friend and colleague, Michal Abramov, the Shlicha, the Israel emissary for Central Synagogue and the Upper East Side. Michal.
Thank you, Rabbi Berman, and shalom, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. We're very excited for this session as it is part of a larger series that we're in called Prospects for Peace. This is session number 3 out of Prospects for Peace. And we chose this day to sort of zoom in to the question of Jerusalem. When we're talking about the conflict, when we're talking about peace, we realize it's a very layered and complicated situation. And there's different elements and different aspects to it. And this week, as Rabbi Berman said, in light of Yom Yerushalayim and the mentioning of Yom Yerushalayim, our Jerusalem Day, we decided to focus on Jerusalem. But before we even start our day, I want to remind us as we're doing this series, as we're listening to different organizations and meeting different peoples with different points of view, some of our guidelines, our Brit, our community Brit, as we launch into this afternoon of learning. First and foremost, to remind us that we speak from a place of I. We're each individuals with personal experiences and personal beliefs, and we don't want to assume anyone else's experiences or beliefs or say something as fact, but rather as a personal experience. Please be curious. Please be open to sharing, open to listening. You might hear things that may challenge your understandings. You might hear things that you want to completely engage with in a way of anger or maybe in a way of disagreement. But again, take a moment, take a breath, listen, be open to what we're hearing. We don't have to agree. We don't have to agree. We're different individuals with different opinions, and we're all here to listen and to learn. And it's okay to disagree, and it's okay to have different opinions. And of course, we want to make sure that we're all respectful and that we use kind language. We'll have an opportunity for people to text their chat their questions in soon. So just reminding everyone to speak in a respectful and kind language and assume good intentions that everyone here in this room, in this virtual room, is here from a good and kind heart of wanting to learn, to be together, to explore together, to find common grounds. So let's give each other the benefit of the doubt and be here together at this time. I'm not going to talk. Usually, I talk about things related to Israel, so I'm not going to talk about Yom Yerushalayim with you today. But we have our friend and just beloved guest, Shani Ben Or, Cantor Rabbi Shani Ben Or, that I'm going to transfer the microphone to her and let her bring us into the day, both just understanding what it is, but also just spiritually and together. So, Shani, thank you so much for being here. I always love doing programs with you, and it's just so wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Michal. Okay, I want to start with music. So why don't we just all take a moment to, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or find a way that you can really listen and take this in. You're not expected to do anything. Just be as you are. Here are some sacred sounds from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem right now. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow who sow in tears will reap in joy. In Hebrew, Hazorim Bedima Berina Iktoru. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Let's take a deep breath, a neshima, a deep breath, a neshima for our soul, for our neshama. Who is this lady that's singing to you? So I would like to just remind us of our connection before. I remind us of this day that we had just marked in Jerusalem, Yom Yerushalayim, and what it means and what it can mean to us, and maybe offer some spiritual direction and practice for the sacred space we're about to enter of dialogue and of encounter. I'm Rabbi Cantor, Shani and you may know me because you may have seen me at Central Synagogue. I was a cantorial intern at Central Synagogue for 2 very formative years. And of course, I was mentored, being the first Israeli that has been ordained as a cantor by the Reform movement in Israel, and a dual ordination of cantor rabbi. I am the first Israeli that also was mentored by your cantor rabbi, Angel Bukdal. But you also may have seen me in the Mishkan service that I founded together with friends. I'd like to dedicate this mifgash of ours to Laura, Zichrona Livracha, one of the members of Central Synagogue who left a great impact on me, and some of you may have known. And we founded together this Shabbat morning Chavura type minyan that still exists in Central Synagogue, or you may know me from Radio City Music Hall, from High Holidays, and we've stayed in touch throughout the year, even in Jerusalem. Some of you came and met me in Yerushalayim, and here I am performing in a closing ceremony of a mission of Central Synagogue to Yerushalayim. And if we're speaking of Yerushalayim, so we are here today because we just finished marking 24 hours of Yom Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem Day, which is an actual holiday here in Israel and Jerusalem. I'm born and raised in Jerusalem, from Jerusalem, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Yom Yerushalayim to spark our memory if you haven't been in previous programming that we've done on this day, and try to maybe explain why we're even marking it here together and in the unique way that we're marking it. This is a picture from the first ever Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day. It's a year after the 6-Day War. So we're in about 1968, and the chief rabbinate in Israel, and here you can see the chief rabbi, decided that they're going to do a special prayer service at the Western Wall. The municipality in Jerusalem, and at the head of the municipality, our Mayor Teddy Kollek then, were very reluctant to mark Jerusalem Day in any way because they were sensitive to the Arab residents of Jerusalem that had just experienced devastation from occupation. And yet the chief rabbinate understood there was some kind of an historical event, something that we stumbled across, by the way, and did not plan as Israelis to end the war in this way, but had an opportunity that arose spontaneously, and then what some of us call the unification of Jerusalem occurred. But the whole thing was spontaneous, just like the country of Israel and the pioneering spirit. It was not planned, and so neither was this encounter of the first Jerusalem Day. But the chief rabbinate, unlike the municipality that was reluctant and sensitive to the residents of the city that were not Jewish and that were living in these areas that had been transformed overnight, the chief rabbinate had its own rhetoric and understanding, religious understanding of this day. And because there was a vacuum and nobody else went in to mark this day or make it some kind of a meaningful event, that's what became the spirit of the day. This year, only yesterday, this is what Jerusalem looked like, where this is what the day feels like. In the spirit of the chief rabbinate then in 1968 until today, maybe the main event on Jerusalem Day, which has become a national holiday passed in the government by law, is something that is more in the right-wing sectors of our politics, more nationalistic. And here you see, to mark the unification and occupation of Jerusalem, and maybe you can already hear the critical notion in my voice, at least as a Jerusalemite, the way that thousands of Israelis choose to mark Jerusalem Day is to march in the old city of Jerusalem, in the territories that were occupied, And this also causes to many encounters, which is a word I hope we're going to use differently, in East Jerusalem between these Israelis and Jews and the residents that are Palestinian and are Arab. And there are a lot of hurtful and violent encounters that happen in this day under this march, that is the March of the Flags. But that's not the only thing that happens in Jerusalem, and this is where you come in, and it's important for us to say and to prep us for this conversation. There are a lot of Jerusalems, like Leah, I'll soon introduce him myself, that mark Jerusalem Day very differently. We love Jerusalem. Jerusalem is part of our spiritual practice, and we do not think it's a place of Jewish superiority. This, for instance, is an initiative of a forum that I'm an active member of. It's called This is Jerusalem. This is an old flyer, but every year tens of events occur to say that Jerusalem and Jerusalem Day is something different. This is the real Jerusalem, including the believers' prayer, a prayer for peace in Jerusalem with multi-faith clergy that lead it is one of these events, for instance. And one of my favorite events, in the same place where thousands of Israelis come to Jerusalem to say to the Palestinian Arabs in the city that they don't belong here, in that same very place, for instance, this is a March of the Flowers and not of the Flags. It's also one of these events of This is Jerusalem, a civil organization that comes and says, we're giving you flowers to the residents of East Jerusalem in the Old City, and this really is Jerusalem. So that was just a reminder of why in Central Synagogue we even choose to mark this day and to try to reclaim it as Reform Jews. There are a lot of practices we could have said we disagree with, but our challenge as liberal Jews is to try to find new meaning and to not shy away from those rituals, traditions, and events on our calendar while somebody else does. Maybe we have something to say about it for our prayers of hope for Yerushalayim, for peace in Jerusalem, and for it to continue to be an integral part of our prayers. So today I really want to offer in this spiritual practice, and it's the next few minutes we're going to go into before we encounter our speakers. And I want to try to together create a space, create a sacred space for listening. And this is a very core part of our identity as Jews because we came together through listening, through hearing. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, is where we heard who we were. We were a people of one God, we were a people of oneness and a people of wholeness, and we heard something. So I'm going to go back to our singing, connecting us to our Shema Yisrael, to a core aspect of our identity. We don't only need to be occupying. We can also be listening to ourselves and listening to others, and soon we'll see how it connects to the work that you'll hear. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. If you know it from your homes, you can join. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. And so the first thing we can do when we encounter an experience that is different than ours, an experience also of oppression and pain, sometimes that we feel responsible for even, is we can listen. And even our friends in Encounter use this as one of their practices. I took this from the website of Encounter, and not only your Rabbi Cantor friend Shani is telling you to listen and that that's not a passive thing, it's actually a very, very active thing that is essential to spaces of conflict. If we want to try to work towards a shared society with people that are different than us, in diversity. And so you can see that these are different principles, and we also have here the Shema, somewhere there in the middle, which is the way that we'll talk about it in Encounter, which to me is a spiritual practice within itself, is resilient listening. And what is resilient listening? Again, it's something very active. It's to encounter and encourage. It encourages resilient listening towards Palestinians, towards Jews, towards anyone with different worldviews than us. It sounds easier than what it is, and I think soon we might experience that. So the first thing we want to do is breathe and listen. And when we think about listening in an active way, I also want to draw our attention to the way that Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, what we just chanted, to the way it's written in our sacred scrolls. And if you can see and if you can identify the letters, and I think of most of us, if there was one prayer that we knew, it would be the Shema Yisrael, then you can see that in the first word, the Ayin, the letter at the end of the Shema is large, and so is the Daled, Echad, at the end of this verse is also large. And what do our Ayin, that big Ayin, which also means I, what does it bring to us when we put it with our Daled? It actually brings the word witness. Our Shema Yisrael ancient prayer has in it a call for action to be witnesses. And I want to say that since October 7th and since encountering in Central Synagogue even, in sacred spaces, I can tell you that to bear witness is one of the main things that Palestinians and Israelis need right now from our friends around the world. It is harder for us sometimes to listen and to hear the experiences of others when things are so live and raw. We have brave brothers and sisters, for instance, in the organization you're going to hear from, but not all of us have that emotional availability. And I know that you have your own difficulties and challenges, but this is a sacred calling that you can actually, even today, take part in. So what we're going to do, and I'll end with another piece of music before we enter this sacred space of hearing, of listening, of witnessing, and really to know that you can carry and hold things that for us might be too painful, but we would like to return to those spaces from a higher place of self. I can tell you this as a Jerusalemite and as an Israeli, that it's something that we need right now. So we'll end with one final piece of a musical intention and prayer for this space that we're going to create right now. And this is a liturgist that says, all of God creatures praise Adonai, and Adonai is one. And because the liturgist clearly has a universal remark here about not only Jews, but about the monotheistic religions, it's used a lot. This Jewish liturgical poem is used a lot in interfaith settings here in Jerusalem. And so we'll end with it, and it even ends with the words, it's not written here, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So this will be our final Shema. So again, we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to try to listen to ourselves. What are we feeling right now? What hurts? Where is our energy? Where is our breath? Is it easy to breathe today? Is it hard? Did we have a good cup of coffee? Are we hungry? Let's try to listen to ourselves. That's the first step. And then we're going to create that space in our heart to hold a listening and witnessing space for others. Kol beruei mala umata yeidun yagidun kulam kechad Adonai echad ushemo echad yeidun yagidun kulam kechad Adonai echad ushemo echad uvdivrei kodshecha katuv lemor Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Okay. Thank you for listening. It is my pleasure and privilege to invite I hope soon to be colleagues from Encounter. I'm not myself an activist in this specific organization, but from what I hear and from what I see, it is fundamental and important for us Israelis. So I'm so happy to introduce you to Leah Solomon, who is the Chief Education Officer at Encounter. Cantor is an organization that is working to cultivate more informed and courageous and resilient Jewish leadership on the Israeli-Palestinian reality, working towards shared spaces and inclusive spaces in Israel. And one little housekeeping announcement before I move it on to you, Leah, is that we've been having more sirens here all across the country. And so if we need to seek a shelter, the Palestinians and Israelis on this call, that will be part of the space that you will hold for us until we return. And we've already done our spiritual training to hold that space for us well until we come back. And I'll also note about Leah that not in her professional role, but her lay leadership, she is the leader of Kehilat Zion in Jerusalem, which is a congregation that does a lot of interfaith work, and that we've also worked together on different projects. And so the world is small, and it's nice to see you and be with you here, Leah, on this call as well.
Thanks so much, Shani, and it's great to be with all of you. In a moment, I'm going to introduce our speakers, Ahmed and Suma and Adir. But I want to start just with a few words about Encounter. So first of all, as Shani said, I'm the Chief Education Officer at Encounter. We are working toward cultivating more informed, courageous, and resilient Jewish leadership on the Israeli-Palestinian reality, as Shani shared with you. And we're really grateful, I want to say, first of all, to Central Synagogue and to Rabbi Sarah Berman and to Marina, who was so helpful in planning for this conversation. So really thank you for the opportunity to be with you and to be with your congregation and to be with all of those of you on the call today. I'll share a few words about Encounter, and then we'll dive straight into our conversation. The first thing I want to say is it's not obvious that people would join today to hear from Palestinians living in Jerusalem in this moment. I think that it takes a lot of courage. There has been so much trauma on both sides of the ocean. I sometimes have found myself wondering whether it's harder to be a Jew in Israel and Jerusalem, where I live these days, or harder to be a Jew in America for all of the different reasons. It's obvious, maybe not obviously, but it is also incredibly hard right now to be a Palestinian. I'm not sure if it's harder here or in the US right now either. I think there's one thing we can all agree on is there is plenty of trauma and pain and fear to go around. And so I want to just really appreciate everyone who chose to be here today and to engage despite all of that, or perhaps because of it. But it's not something that I take lightly. As Shani spoke about, Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, is, I think for many of us, it's a day of, perhaps for many people, celebration. Mixed together with a sense of responsibility. Shani spoke a little bit about some of the ways that the day is celebrated or commemorated in Jerusalem, which are very challenging for many of us. And it's also a real privilege, I want to say, as someone who chose to make my life in Israel about 25 years ago, to be able to live in Jerusalem and to have a state, a Jewish state. And that's the complexity that we want to sort of try to talk through a little bit today with our Palestinian guests, speakers, and our Israeli speaker. For those who don't know, Jerusalem is a city that is about 40% Palestinian, 60% Jewish. Palestinians live mostly on the east side of the city in East Jerusalem, and they are, it's sort of a special case. They are not citizens of Israel. They are also not residents of the Palestinian Authority. They are residents of Israel, but not citizens. So perhaps we'll dive into that a little bit with Ahmed and Suma. A couple words about Encounter and what we want to accomplish here with our speakers. Encounter, like I said, we're working on Jewish leadership on the Israeli-Palestinian reality. I'm using that word intentionally and not just the conflict, because the reality that we live in is there is certainly plenty of conflict, but it is much more than conflict. It is the reality. It's something that whether or not we choose to look at it or engage with it, it's there, and it's very all-encompassing. We work primarily with Israeli Jewish leaders. We also work with, we have very new initiative, intergenerational seminars for American Jewish leaders of, say, Gen X and older, along with their Gen Z and sometimes millennial children. We've noticed there is a very rapidly growing generational gap between how younger and older generations of American Jews engage with Israel, and especially with the Israeli-Palestinian reality. So we're really bringing Jews to engage as much as possible, to meet face-to-face with Palestinians, and in the case of American Jews, to also meet face-to-face with Israeli Jews, and to engage with these questions that it's easier to avoid, but that we can't really ignore, that are really a pressing and urgent challenge that all of us need to deal with if we are going to be able to move forward from here. I'll say one last thing about Encounter. 3 of our most important organizational values are Ahava Israel, a love of and commitment to the Jewish people; Kvod HaAdam, the right of every human being to live in dignity and in freedom and with full rights; and inextricability. We see that the reality shows us that living in this land are about half Palestinians, half Jews, Israeli Jews, and neither people is going anywhere. And we are currently living in a state of war, a state of violence. We have been for a very long time. It has gotten much worse over the last year and a half. And we can either keep living in this state, or we can choose to try to work towards something different. And what I really deeply appreciate about all 3 of our speakers today is that they are all doing incredible work amidst a very challenging reality to try to bring about a different future, and a different future that at the end of the day will benefit both of our peoples. So I'm going to introduce them, and then we'll jump straight into hearing from them. The way that we're going to structure this conversation, we have 2 Palestinian East Jerusalemite speakers with us today, Ahmed and Suma, and we're going to hear first from them, and maybe we'll take a question or 2. And then we have with us Adir Schwarz, who is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem. He's also a member of Encounter's Israeli network, participated on an Encounter seminar for Israelis. And we asked him to come today as a representative in the municipality to respond to some of what he hears from Ahmed and Suma, and to share with us a little bit about how he, as an Israeli Jewish leader and someone who sits in the municipality, works towards creating a Jerusalem that will meet the needs of all of its residents. So Ahmed and Suma, we'll begin with you. Ahmed, I'm not going to read their whole bios because you saw them in the invitation. Ahmed is the director of the East Jerusalem Youth Authority. He's also at the Inar Center in East Jerusalem, which is a center for youth. He'll tell us more about it. And an East Jerusalemite, grew up in East Jerusalem, and he'll tell us a little bit more about his story. And Suma is the senior program director at Kids for Peace, which works with Jerusalemite kids from 6th grade through high school, who are from interfaith backgrounds, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish. And she's been working with Kids for Peace for a long time. She's also a resident of Sheikh Jarrah. And for those of you who heard a little bit about Sheikh Jarrah, it was in the news a lot in 2021. She's also been an activist in the neighborhood, and working for people to be able to stay in their homes. So Ahmed and Suma, it's great to have you with us. I want to start by asking Ahmed, maybe we'll start with you. Can you start by telling us about yourself, about how you came to do the work that you do, and a little bit about what that work is and why it's so important to you, to Ahmed?
Well, thank you, Leah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and I thank you for the opportunity. Before I begin, I need to give a form of a disclaimer. I want to clarify that I'm speaking to you today in a personal capacity. Well, I currently serve as the director of the East Jerusalem Youth Authority at the Jerusalem municipality. The views I share here today are my own and only my own. They do not represent the official position of the municipality, the Inarius Center, or any other institution I'm affiliated with. And I speak to you today as someone who was born and raised in Jerusalem and cares deeply about the future of this city. I hope we have a great conversation today. So let me start by introducing myself. I'm Ahmed Hasna. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. My family has been in Jerusalem for a very long time. I think we got here around 637 AD, and we've been in Jerusalem and around for since then. There I was asked the other day about what I love about Jerusalem. If I ever went anywhere else, what would I take with me from this city? And it was an awkward question because I felt that, I am the city and the city is me. And my wife, when I told my wife this, she laughed and she said, "Yes, you left a high-tech job in Tel Aviv to come back and work with young people in Jerusalem." So that that in its own is a testament of what the city means to me. Um, Throughout my life in Jerusalem, I spent my teen years during the Second Intifada, and the experiences that I lived during that time really shaped my view of what it means to be a Palestinian living in Jerusalem. The opportunities and more so the challenges. It was very hard for me to break through and get to, advance in life due to the political and the violent reality that surrounded me and many of my friends at the time. So when things got better and I was able to, break through, and then I actually went to university. I went to the Hebrew University and I studied there, and then I started working and meeting with Israelis and getting to know them and learn about the other. That I understood that reality was not black and white. It was far more complex than one can perceive. And I've done a lot of things in Jerusalem. I worked with young students, school students, both Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs, in Jerusalem and also across Israel, under the umbrella of an MIT-sponsored program called the Middle East Entrepreneurs of Tomorrow. Maybe some of you know them or heard about them or even donated to them in the past. What it does is it brings young people from both sides, and across 3 years, over 3 years they work together to create projects and startups, learning to collaborate and working together, as everyone in the program believes it should be in real life and in reality. So that's when I also got to get my hands-on experience on what it means to bring together Palestinians and Israelis and how the dynamics often shift when you give them a level playing field, if you may, where both have the same opportunity and also the same, chance to change and give their opinion, and create something in their own image. And I think when I look forward about working with young people in Jerusalem, which I'll get to in a second, I think my compass is really trying to create a city, or at least imagine a city where differences, are actually welcome. But in order for these differences to work together and create the magic of diversity, we need to create a just and level playing field for everyone. So whatever I do today, in my capacity in the municipality or also outside, it's trying to create a more just environment for young people, be it Palestinians in Jerusalem or Israelis in Jerusalem or elsewhere, to be able to understand that working together does have its benefits, and it will actually lead us to a better place, both politically and economically. And what I do today at the municipality is basically working with young people between the ages of 18 and 35. And if I give like a very short recap on who are the young people of East Jerusalem, we're talking about 135,000 young men and women from East Jerusalem. This is about the size of a medium-sized city in Israel. It's a lot of people. And for a very long time, they've been disregarded, underdeveloped, as a population, and also geographically as wherever they live in East Jerusalem. And in the past 10, maybe 12 years, there have been these programs that try to support young people to go into higher education, be more engaged or integrated, quote unquote, into the Israeli labor force and the Israeli job market. And what we do at Inara and in the Youth Authority is try to support young people on their journey of learning as students at university, which has its own challenges, being a Palestinian going to an Israeli institution. There are many feelings of isolation, of loneliness and confusion. And also there's this sense that I'm not welcomed here. And we try to help them and support them on this journey. In addition to this, we also work with young people who are trying to get into the Israeli labor market and the Israeli job market, basically. In what sense? In the sense that young people in Jerusalem finish university at a very young age, very similar to the US. People, graduate at 21, 22, and they're just like, yeah, ready to go into the field, but they don't have the same experience that Israelis have after 2 or 3 years in the army and maybe a few years of volunteering that they can actually afford because the system is built around that. So they are less competitive in the job market compared to other Israelis. So we try to give them some upskilling, what is called upskilling, basically, get them to learn soft skills, get them to understand what it means to work in a professional setting, and help them get jobs, be it in the private sector, the public sector, or in the NGO sector. In addition to this, we try to give young people a safe space. In our center is a center that was established about 4 years ago. I've been the director of the center for the past year and 2 months. So yeah, I came to Inar at the height of the war post 7 October, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy working with young people who are absolutely desperate. They're very depressed from the situation, and they feel very hopeless. So my entire work now revolves around the efforts to bring back hope to these young people, because at the end of the day, the hardest and the most dangerous thing is a person who has no hope and who feels that there is no future for him, especially in a city that has changed so much, and there are so many elements and people and symbols and actions that are trying to push him away from identifying with his own city. So in a nutshell, I don't want to take a long time. This is basically the gist of what I do in Jerusalem and work with youth.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. So I actually want to hear a little bit more about those challenges in a minute, but I want to go to you, Suma. And if you could share with us, like with Ahmed, first of all, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your connection to Jerusalem and what brought you to do the work that you do today with Kids for Peace, and a little bit about that work and what you're trying to accomplish with that work.
Hi all, I hope you are doing well. I'm so sorry I'm moving around, but my flight landed in New York only 2 hours ago. So, but I felt it's an urgent to be at the school, honestly, and speak about يعني about who are we. So I'll start with saying I was born in Sheffield. I grew up in Jerusalem, and I'm still living there. I don't know if you've heard about my neighborhood. Our neighborhood is a very complicated story that we started working against different elements in 2021, and 2021 was a very tough year for us as an East Jerusalemite. What brought me to this work? When I was 14 years old, my dad, in a way or another, convinced me to go to a summer camp at the States. And for me, it was an opportunity flying alone to the States, 14 years old. It was a great opportunity, honestly. So I went to Seed the Peace camp at the campus. And since then, I'm involved. And through Seed the Peace, I started working with Kids for Peace. Kids for Peace now is a project under Seed the Peace. And at Kids for Peace, as Leah mentioned, we work with kids from different religion backgrounds. يعني, since the beginning of the call, I've been thinking about what to say about this work, but I would just say something. People think that we bring the kids to empower them, to help them, to show them the right story or the other side. But for me, lately, we bring the kids for us to give us hope, to see the hope in their eyes, to give us the courage, so we'll be able to stand up. That's why I'm at this call, because for those kids, I believe us, the leaders, let's say, or the people working in this field, we should keep speaking about what we're doing, improving what we're doing, teaching the world who are we. So those kids that I work with will have better and different opportunities than the opportunities we had. Leah said many things that I really wanted to comment on. I truly believe that during the call I will, which is living as a Jew in the state or in Israel, which one is hardest, or about Palestinians living in Jerusalem. I would say Jerusalem is the hardest city to live in as an East Jerusalemite, as a Palestinian. But at the same time, it's very hard. It's impossible to live out of Jerusalem. I tried to live out of Jerusalem and I couldn't. So living in East Jerusalem is, this tricky situation where you don't know what you're doing, what's the right, what's wrong, nothing. You just live your life day by day. That's us. That's us East Jerusalemites. That's how I see myself. Being an East Jerusalemite living in as a Palestinian, it means that you're a Palestinian only by heart. It means that you're not Jordanian, you're not Israeli, you're nothing. You're literally nothing. Wherever I go to any airport, I have to stand up in front of the desk, explain who am I, what nationality I'm holding. So Jerusalem is a complex, segregated city. And also at the beginning, seeing the presentation about yesterday and the picture around, I would just say, we need a lot of time, we need a lot of power, and we need a lot of help to make this city a beautiful city, not only from outside, also from inside. And that's it, yeah.
Thanks, Suma. So yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit about, Ahmed, you started talking about some of the challenges that the young people deal with, the young people that you work with are dealing with every day. And Suma, you also started talking about both for yourself and the young people, the children and teens that you work with. Ahmed, the people you're working with are more in their 20s and early 30s, I think. So you have sort of between the two of you, a wide range. And I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about what are some of the key challenges that you see since October 7th also, but in general, and how does the work that you do help address some of those challenges and make life a little bit better for the people that you're working with and for those around them too, right? Because if you're working with a 25-year-old, the work that you do with them is for them, but it is also for their communities. How does it shift? And the same with the young people, right? They're coming themselves, but they also come as part of their families. How does it impact them? And how does it impact the communities that they are a part of?
Well, I think there's a very long list of challenges that young people in Jerusalem face, and I think these challenges have not changed in a world that is post October 7 than one that was before. I think that if we were to say, if we from the offset want to say how the war in Gaza, October 7th, affected what these challenges in Jerusalem. We just can say that it just made it even worse. It exacerbated a lot of these challenges and made them even harder to resolve because of the unwillingness, because of the very well understandable anger and reaction from the other side that does not allow now for more space, if not, it's not like there was much space before for dialogue and trying to reach common grounds on certain matters. But I think I should tackle at least two or three main challenges. The first one is identity. Many Palestinian youngsters feel that the city is actively they're unable to feel like they belong in the city. They feel as strangers in their own city, and the reason behind this is because they're not allowed, to reflect their identity on the city itself. Um, at the end of the day, I mean, Jerusalem or any city, it's not the stones, it's the people. It is the people that make the city. And what's happening right now is that less and less there's enough room or is it allowed for Palestinians to associate their identity with the city. Um, Pretty much everything that is being done around the city in an official context is actually limiting the space for Palestinians to enjoy their identity. Leave alone if it was we're not talking about their national identity, but even the cultural identity, their social identity. It's not allowed to be present. It's not allowed to be in public. It's not allowed to be celebrated. So many people struggle with this, and they feel that they are being watched, they're being surveilled all the time, more so since the October 7th. And this puts them in a very tough spot where they're constantly self-censoring themselves. Even I, as a mature man in Jerusalem, a Palestinian, I also censor pretty much a lot of what I say and what I do in order to avoid scrutiny or avoid, direct action against me. Um, Even, it's hard for Palestinians to even say that they want to build bridges with Israelis. And once one would think that the threat was coming from the Palestinian society itself. But no, today it's actually coming from the Israeli society. I think there's a tide of action, sometimes violent, against anyone who dares say that they want to build bridges with the other side. And I think the loudest voices are such as the voices we saw yesterday in on Yom Yerushalayim, roaming the streets of the old city and wishing death upon Arabs and reminding everyone that Muhammad is dead, because we've already known that for about 1,300 years. But thank you, and it keeps repeating itself. But I also, as a side note, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the efforts that Standing Together and Tag Meir have done throughout the years to mitigate the violent actions that take place on this march. So identity is
Standing
one.
together, Standing Together and Tag Meir being Israeli organizations that are.
Yes, Israeli organizations. Yes. Because ultimately, I mean, Palestinians, I mean, one can only imagine what would happen to a Palestinian that would stand, his ground against mobs of angry right-wing settler teens. he'll get beat up and he will not be saved by the police or the border police. This have been proven. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact that is well documented. So no one wants to be in that position. So thank you to them. I think that the job and actually the work that they've done is phenomenal. In addition to identity issues, I think one of the greatest challenges young people face is being able to participate in the public space. There are not enough public spaces in Jerusalem there where young people can actually enjoy some peace and security, where they can actually develop themselves, their skills, without having to go to the west side of the city, or even within the west side of the city, anything that would actually take them as they are. There's always this prerequisite. Whatever you are in the city is you need to drop your identity at the door and come in and take whatever you want, be it education, be it work, be it culture. There's no space where they feel 100% comfortable being in. And one of the main challenges for not just young people, for all Jerusalemites, is issues with residency. I mean, there are not enough resident homes in Jerusalem for Arab residents, for Palestinian residents, and I think Adir can pitch in more on that, about what's happening and why it's happening. But if we were to actually not equate, but contrast between the Jewish population and the Palestinian population of Jerusalem, we're 40% of the city, and we get about less than 5% of the building permits in the city. And that's problematic because, I mean, for a young person like myself who has a young family, I can't even find a house to let alone buy one, at least to rent one. It's very hard. The market in East Jerusalem is insanely competitive, and many people, end up leaving the city, and this drains the city of capable, cultured, educated workforce that is good for the city, that's going to help build the city economically, and they leave. Many of the Palestinians leave to the West Bank, but still, it's a slippery slope because by doing so, they're risking getting their residency status revoked, and that in its own is very frightful because then you're stateless. No country will take you in. You cannot become, a resident of the West Bank, and you cannot travel to another country without having some form of passport, European passport, American passport, whatever. And that puts them in a position where if you want to live in Jerusalem, you will have to fight like hell to stay in the city because it's not easy. It's not easy to find a home to stay in. It's not easy to get to seek education and get a job here and start a family and raise this family in the values and the identity that you want to raise them in.
Thank you, Ahmed. Suma, so before you speak, Suma, I just want to say, I see Monica put a question in the chat, and I want to invite, if other people have questions for our speakers, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. And maybe Suma, I know you can't see the chat. You guys don't need to worry about the chat, Ahmed and Suma, but Suma, I think the question that Monica asked here, I want to ask it now because I think it very much ties into what I'm asking you. She said, how do we make Jerusalem a beautiful city from the inside? And I think in many ways that is what you at Kids for Peace are trying to do, and it's not always easy. So if you can, like Ahmed spoke to us about, Ahmed is working very much directly with Palestinian youth. You are actually working with younger people from both sides of the Green Line, Muslim and Christian Palestinian children and Israeli Jewish children. How do you go about building something with them, especially given the the challenges that many of the Palestinian youth that you're working with are dealing with. How do you bring them together, and how do you talk to them about those challenges?
How to make Jerusalem beautiful from the inside. By the way, Leah, we can see the chat, and I saw the question since she said she posted it. But I was thinking about it, listening to what Ahmed is saying, so I didn't want to repeat honestly what he's saying. And at the same time, thinking about the question, it's really hard. I truly don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. Being around the kids, honestly, Israelis and Palestinians, and that's, we don't honestly divide them, or like we don't use those terms when we have our meetings. For us, they are Jews and Muslims. But I would say now, being around kids from age 12 till 16 between Israelis and Palestinians, it gives you a fragment, a small taste of how we can Jerusalem beautiful from the inside. Being around those kids, making it clear for them that we're living around a lot of stereotypes, and that's what I hate about people around us. Also, many stereotypes about people from the other sides, for both of the sides. I would say that, unfortunately, the way we're living in Jerusalem, it's very clear that many leaders are taking benefit from the hatred and from all the violence that's happening around Jerusalem. It's very clear. So how to make it beautiful from the inside? It's about helping the people to accept the others as human beings. For us in Jerusalem, we don't see the other side as a human being. For us, we label them as Israelis, Palestinians. We don't see. Anna, what we're trying to do at Kids for Peace, we're trying to help the kids to listen. I hate hearing. I always encourage them to listen. I always ask them, sit around the table, don't agree, don't accept, but each one has the right to speak, and you should listen to those people. For us, we sit around the table in our communities. I believe it's a Middle East thing, we sit around the table to respond, not to listen or to understand. And that's what we're trying to change. Don't sit waiting for the other person to stop talking, so you'll immediately respond. No, sit, listen, don't accept. Just say, I don't accept, I don't believe, I don't agree, but I listen. That's what we're honestly listening, and that's the first step to make Jerusalem from the inside beautiful, is to help the kids or help people living in Jerusalem see the other side as human beings, not as let's say, the opposite party. The challenges we're living, honestly, we've been living with many challenges since years and years in Jerusalem. Oh my God, since years and years in Jerusalem. But the thing that after the 7th of October, those challenges became more clear, and they are combined more with hatred and violence. Starting from many simple things. Let's say, Ahmed spoke a lot about things, but I would go to more simple things. Language for me as an East Jerusalemite is a challenge. I live in Israel as a resident in Jerusalem. I don't speak Hebrew, or I speak Hebrew, I don't like to use it, or I'm not professional in Hebrew, whatever. But the language, for example, as an East Jerusalemite, whatever legal paper or official paper I need to go to, let's say, Israeli departments or Israeli offices. It's very hard. Since the moment you ask for someone who speaks Arabic, the process will become hard. Everything is a challenge in Jerusalem now. Going to the hospital is a challenge. Schools now, if we're speaking about what the schools, now the curriculums, the educational Israeli ministry, the Ministry of Education now, they are obligating what to teach in our schools as Palestinians. Everything is a challenge. Trust us, living in Jerusalem, only survivors can live in Jerusalem.
Thank you, Suma.
So yeah.
So I'm going to ask the last question here, and then we're gonna hear a little bit from Adir. But first, we have a question here from Patricia about. Well, she asked you, Ahmed, but I think both of you maybe have some thoughts on this. What she wrote here is, are both Palestinians and Israeli youth depressed and discouraged? And I think I would expand that to see, how do you talk to young people, whether in, middle and high school, or people who are in their 20s and are, after university, or looking for jobs? How do you speak to them when you see that they are feeling discouraged or depressed? What do you share with them as people who really are working for change?
So maybe you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Suma.
I wanted to tell Ahmed to go first, but it's fine. How do we, I'll tell you something. From the beginning, we open applications to accept kids at Kids for Peace. You can tell that there are a very big difference between the kids. From the beginning, I receive usually around 30, let's say, applications from Israelis, but I receive 300 from the Palestinians. Why? Because Palestinians, they don't have opportunities. They don't have, most of the Israeli kids, it's really hard to recruit Israeli kids because they have a lot of things after school. Their schools, they offer them many things. For us to be offered such activities, you need to pay. But for the Israelis, even the scouts, we don't have scouts. So it's not about it's discouraged. It's about from the beginning, they don't have opportunities to be encouraged or discouraged. They're very limited. With this government, Netanyahu, Netanyahu is someone else. It's a totally different story with Netanyahu. Ahmed, if you'd like to go with the discouraged thing.
Sure. I think, well, yes, I do think that Palestinian and Israeli youth are both depressed. There's no question about that. I think just the idea is that what would come next is different for both sides. For Israelis, there is going to be a point where the war will end, or we get to a point where the conflict is again managed in a way that is very comfortable for Israelis to live their life comfortably, walk their dog, enjoy the parties and have fun and plan their lives, and there'll be more planes, flying into Israel where they can travel abroad and enjoy their summer vacation. The reality for Palestinians is completely different. So what's going to happen next? And I'll give you a sneak peek on what I hear on daily basis from young people in Jerusalem and elsewhere. At the beginning of the war, people felt that, it's crazy what's happening in Gaza, this rage, this violence is insane. And right now, young people stop thinking about that. They're thinking about when it's going to happen to them. And it's a very dark place for someone who's 21, 22 to think that, whatever I'm going to plan for the next 10, 15 years needs to be a response to a point in time when I'm going to be either killed along with my family or driven out of my home, because it's already happening in Gaza and it's starting to happen in the West Bank. And soon it's going to be here in Jerusalem and elsewhere. So, and I think people think that's going to happen because for probably the first time and very publicly, to what Nancy said, the Israeli government is not doing anything about it. On the contrary, it's actually inflaming it. And we're seeing this in every year on the flags march on Yom Yerushalayim, the level of violence, the level of impunity these people, go and act on in Jerusalem is insane. So people just think, at any given point, under the right pretense, we're dead. We're done for. So that's the where each side can, meets this depressing reality. Now, I'm not an expert on how Israelis feel, but my Israeli friends do share with me how they feel and what they're going through, and it's not easy, and I acknowledge it. And I think I think when we start to acknowledge that we're all in the same pit, and in the same, mud, then we're able to actually say, okay, now we need to pull ourselves, by the bootstraps and get out of this together, because we can't do it on our own. If one gets out and the other's still there, it's not the best formula. So there's that. And two, Leah, you said something. There was another part of your question. Can you remind me?
How do you speak with young people who
Yes, thank you.
seem discouraged, depressed, who feel like they don't have a lot of hope? I mean, I think the work that you do, just from knowing it a little bit, gives them hope, right? But I just want to give you a chance to maybe say a few words about it.
I'll be honest, I'll be completely honest with you, and this is opening a door into my heart. So I think there are days where I'm very hopeful, and there are days where I'm not hopeful at all. And I think today is one of those days where I've had a very long day of, just seeing that things are not moving forward. Things aren't going to get better. It's only getting worse. And I think I have a very heavy heart, coming to this call, and I feel like it's, this day really weighed on my shoulders and on my chest. And yeah, I can tell you that, I look at what we do and I say, wow, it's like treating cancer with, Spider-Man band-aids. It's not really doing anything. Really, it's not. You know, we're telling young people that, they need to be build resilience. They need to be more resilient in the face of change, to be, ready, go and acquire an education, and then start to, work on their skills so they can get a better job and, establish themselves. But the problem is that the problem is not navigating the system. The problem is that the system is rigged against you, and you might not have a place in it. And it's not because of, the language that you don't speak. I speak perfect Hebrew. You can ask Adir. He's a good friend of mine, and he knows my Hebrew. And I know that, I won't go as far as I want to, not because of the language, and it's not because of my skills. It's for other considerations. And I think that young people now, when I talk to them, I get inspired, I get hope, because I think there's this intrinsic value or characteristic in young people where they just refuse reality. They refuse to accept reality because they're stubborn, and they do it automatically. But to be honest, I mean, it's fascinating to see them like say one day, you know what? To hell with it. We're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do an MA in whatever I want and hope for the best. And you just feel like, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe we just like keep our eyes shut, and when we were going through hell, just to keep going until we're past that. And those are the days where I feel like, yeah, maybe there is hope. And it's not coming from me to them. It's not passing from me to them by the work that we do, where we try to encourage them to do better. We help them do better in life, and we direct them in a positive sense. But no, it's actually seeing them trying to, take their space, fight for it, and get it. And yeah, that's the inspiring part, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ahmed. So
And
Adir, I want to bring you into sorry, Simwa, did you want to add one thing?
I just want to comment on something that Ahmed said. Yeah, both of the sides are depressed, but a little bit after work, because I work with the two sides, I would say they are really depressed. They are خلاص bored of what's going on, but at the same time, the Israelis, they are a little bit more privileged with the idea that they have Israeli citizenship. Because at any time, I know with the sirens around the world, around the country, it's a bit difficult now. But for them, they can really just leave the contact zone with Palestinians and live their own. They can go to, let's say, Tel Aviv, wherever they want, and they wouldn't interact with Palestinians. But for East Jerusalemites, us as Palestinians, there's no option. You can't. There's no option to stop interacting with people from the other side. It's your life, and you're stuck with it. So the idea, last week we were speaking about where do you want to spend your summer with the kids, and for most of the Israelis, and one Palestinian commented, is, oh my God, all of them, they have another citizenship. For us, we're Palestinians. Trust me, we don't have a nationality. On my Jordanian passport, it's written as the nationality, I'm not Jordanian. On my travel document, laissez-passer, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Jordanian, the nationality is empty. So for the kids, one of the Palestinians to still tell me, Suma, they are all, why all of them, they have another citizenship? Why they are privileged? They can go to wherever they don't need visas. For us, it's hard. So yes, they are depressed, but let's say, they are depressed on different levels.
Thank you to both of you. Adir, so I said at the beginning that Adir is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem. He's also the chair of the Hitorarut party. And what I want to ask you, Adir, as somebody who is actually one of the people in the Jerusalem municipality who I think of all of the leaders in Jerusalem really does see the 40% of the city who are Palestinian and is doing a lot of work to try to make Jerusalem truly a city for all of its residents. And so I wanted to ask you if you could maybe share a few reflections about what it is like hearing from Ahmed and Suma. I know you're not hearing this for the first time, maybe from them specifically, but I know that these are things that you're familiar with. These are issues that you're familiar with. What is it like for you to hear from them and to hear from other Palestinians who are your constituents as the deputy mayor? And what are you, with the amount of influence that you do have within the municipality, which I know is limited, but what are some of the initiatives that you're working on to try to make the reality better?
Well, hello everybody. I liked what Suma said about listening and not hearing. I think it would be a very good rule for politicians everywhere, including the Jerusalem municipality and within. So I practiced listening in this last hour or so, and it was, and I want to say, it's not always easy just to listen. And I think the first thing any Israeli feels when he hears Palestinians is getting defensive. I feel like I'm on the defense right now, and I try to elevate myself from being on the defense, but Ahmed opened his heart and spoke about feelings, so I open my heart as well, and I feel like I need to be defensive right now. I'll try not to be defensive. And again, and like Ahmed said when he first spoke, I will also speak. For me as a politician, there is no really a difference between my personal and my public role, let's say. And I will speak, but I will speak also on a personal level, not necessarily representing the Jerusalem municipality in every word. Okay. So I want to say just about myself a little bit, and it has to do with the question you asked, is that I grew up in the Intifada in Jerusalem, and I want to say that growing up in the Intifada in Jerusalem, we each grow up in like a different sphere in Jerusalem. We each grow up in our own neighborhoods, our own shells. We are very protected by the institutions that we go and study at, and we only study with our very similar counterparts. I grew up in a modern Orthodox Zionist school, and the Hartman Institute. Those of you who know, and this is where I studied, and I studied only with people who are very much alike me. I didn't even study with secular Jews, let alone ultra-Orthodox Jews, let alone Arab Muslims or Christians. And that fact only has, and it explains a lot, I think, of the challenges of Jerusalem, because, when you grow up in a city of Intifada and, buses explode, this happened. And, who explodes the buses? So as a child, you make 1 + 1 = 8. And growing up in Jerusalem, I think from both sides, and this is something that we need to break. This is the vicious cycle that we need to break looking forward, is that growing up in Jerusalem, hating each other is common sense. It's 1 + 1. And I think this is a lot of what Palestinians feel, and this is what a lot of Israelis feel. When I walk around in the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem, I don't like to use the term East Jerusalem. It's misleading in a lot of ways. And it creates this false awareness that you can forget about it. It's somewhere else. East Jerusalem, no. This is the same city. When I walk around in the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem, my Jewish counterparts think I'm crazy, think I'm the bravest man, or I'm just or that I have no responsibility. And yes, I have some advantages that I think one can acknowledge. I'm a white man that looks like a Swedish diplomat and speaks Arabic, which makes it sort of comfortable walking around those parts of Jerusalem. But I want to make clear for everybody that I think the beauty and the challenge of Jerusalem is that it's a city that nobody, I really believe that, nobody feels comfortable everywhere in Jerusalem. My job, my life mission is to make Jerusalem a place where there are parts that each and everyone can feel comfortable at, but nobody will feel comfortable everywhere in Jerusalem. There is no way that a secular woman will feel at home in an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood. There is no way that an ultra-Orthodox man will feel comfortable in an Arab neighborhood, and so on and so forth. And this is the beauty of Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is not a city of diversity of backgrounds. It's not that we look different, but we share the same views, sort of this kind of, and I'm sorry if I'm being judgmental. This is not the sort of kind of American feel well kind of diversity. This is hardcore pluralism, diversity with people who think differently than you, and you need to live together on the same area. And it's not only that they think differently than you. In this, sometimes it's a sum zero game, right? Sometimes it comes on the on. Sometimes there is no way to coexist on some spaces or in some issues, at least not for everybody. And I think this is the challenge that we are facing, and we're facing it together. I want to say that for me personally, what opened my eyes is actually doing coexistence. When I was 16 years old, I found out that there is no framework for girls in Jerusalem to play soccer, what we call football, and I will call football from now on. And that angered me a lot, because I love football, and the fact that girls didn't have where to play. I know for an American this sounds maybe crazy, but here there was no framework for girls to play football, and I found out that there are many girls who want to play football, and I founded a league for girls to play. Now, what's beautiful about football is that it doesn't force you to change. You can be who you are, you can represent your neighborhood, but it also forces you to meet one another on a very, very low common ground. Because a child in Jerusalem, if you want to bring children in Jerusalem together, and I think that maybe Suma can agree with me, we can begin with speaking about these things, because every child in Jerusalem has an opinion. Who is better, Ronaldo or Messi? Before we begin to speak, about God or about politics. And I found out that that girls want to play football also in Arab neighborhoods, also in settlements, also all around the Jerusalem area. And for me, this was a life-changing experience, because I actually got to go and meet people from the other side. And it was really an eye-opening experience and a great opportunity. And to this day, this is the largest sports framework for girls in Israel in general. And for me, it was, I think the moment I really fell in love with Jerusalem, because I think Jerusalem is really, really an exciting city. It's a challenging city. And I understand when Suma says it's not beautiful from within. I really, really understand that, but I think it has so many beautiful features. And I think that the whole picture is not beautiful enough, but it has a uniqueness to it, and there is things that happen only in Jerusalem. And I think these last 2 days, the Jerusalem Day and how it's celebrated, I don't need the Jerusalem Day. For me, every day is the Jerusalem Day. And for the people who really love Jerusalem, we don't need the Jerusalem Day. Sometimes it's a good reason. It's a good reason to party. Like, I don't need the anniversary with my wife to remember that I love her, but sometimes having an occasion is a good thing. And I wish Jerusalem Day was all about that. But I don't like the way the Jerusalem Day is being celebrated at the moment. And Rabbi Shani, which comes from a beautiful family, you should know that about her. I know her entire family. she spoke about the different ways of the liberal reclaiming of the Jerusalem Day that is being undergoing, and I have a great privilege to be a part of that. So that's my first thoughts.
Yeah, Adir, I would love to hear a little bit about, I know that you do work in the Jerusalem municipality on, I don't know if it's on behalf, like, but really trying to make the lives of Palestinian residents of the city better, as well as work you do for Israeli residents, Jewish residents of the city. But I wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives. I also will say, when I asked you to speak on this webinar, we actually hadn't we hadn't actually figured out that we were going to be giving an ignition grants, but we Cantor recently launched a project giving what we're calling ignition grants to some of our Israeli network members for initiatives that they're doing. And actually just last week, I know you had submitted a proposal and are doing an initiative that I think actually is a really beautiful example of the work that you're trying to do. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about that, and also if there are other initiatives. I know you were working on it before. It's not just this most recent grant.
Yeah, so I'll try to go zoom out and then zoom in, okay? Because I see also the questions on the chat, and I will try to give some information. In general, the Arab population of Jerusalem is able to go and get an Israeli citizenship. When I say this, I mean this in not all of them will be accepted. It's a long bureaucracy. And there are more and more people who are applying for a citizenship in the last few years. This process has stopped on October 7th, like everything else, but it's starting to get back more and more. I think well, it's a long conversation why not all of them did it so far, and why it was not, it's a heavy political questions, why not all of them applied. But the implication on this discussion is that although the Arab residents of Jerusalem are entitled to vote and to be voted for in the Jerusalem municipality, and when I say they, I mean 98% of them, they choose not to vote. The outcome of the choice not to come and vote is that there is no Arab politician in the Jerusalem municipality. And in a representative political system, that's a big problem, especially in the way of the political structure in Israel is that we represent sectors more than ideologies. Unfortunately, I hate that. I try to break that. My party is a home to Jewish people, both right, left, secular, and religious, and to everybody who can identify with our causes. But we represent, ultimately, it's all about representing different sectors, not ideologies, and this is very important. And this means that when there is nobody to represent the Arab sector, there are people who represent ideologies that want to include Arab people, but when there is nobody there to represent the sector, there is, by design, there is a problem. So we tried to solve that. I personally, the first thing I did when I became a member of the city council almost 5 years ago is to hire a private tutor in Arabic so I would be able to understand people's problems. However, this is not enough. Also because, well, my Arabic is fine, but it's not, I don't think it's good enough. It's not quick enough, at least. And second, because again, in a representative democracy, it will be very patronizing of me to think that I know better than Ahmad and Sunna and any other Arab resident of Jerusalem, that I will know better than them. I do my best to represent what I hear, but it's never good enough. So I think if we want to really, really, really change this and make the policy, the overlaying policy of the Jerusalem municipality to make Jerusalem, as Sunma said, beautiful from within, we will need to see Arab representatives in the city council. This is my personal opinion, very much not so necessarily the official opinion of the Jerusalem municipality. However, in the last few years, the Jerusalem municipality, I think, has gotten better in treating the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem. This has a lot to do with funds that we received to do it from the government. Two major government decisions, the decision 3790 and decision 880, that brings billions of shekels into the development of East Jerusalem, of the Arab neighborhoods of the city. It comes down to everyday life, like cleaning. I think the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem are cleaner than ever before. And this is at least what I hear from the people. Almost one of the first words in Arabic that I learned from people on the street was tandif. Tandif is cleaning. And it gotten much better. There is a lot of investment in education now, and more high school students in East Jerusalem opt to study the Israeli program. This is very important because they either study today, most of them either study the Jordanian problem or the Jordanian program or the Palestinian program. Some of them are even studying in private schools that have an international program, like the French one or an American SAT one. And some of them are studying in schools that are controlled by Hamas. So when the Israeli government decided to take action and to promote not Jewish, but the Israeli program on those schools, they enable better education, they enable easier gateway into Israeli society and into Hebrew understanding and speaking, and into the workforce afterwards, and into university. And this is processes that happened really fast. When I studied in Hebrew U, just only a few years ago, I'm 31 years old. So I finished my master's degree only 3 years ago, I think. There was maybe 10 or 20% of the university was Arab. Today we are around 30 and 40%. So there is a lot of improvements there. There is an improvement in high tech. The Jerusalem municipality is encouraging high tech to be built in Silicon, in Wadi Joz. It's an Arab neighborhood called Wadi Joz, and we have a project called Silicon Wadi. And this is going to be built there. There is a big center that was opened by the Jerusalem municipality called Istek. Istek is, East, Eastek. But it's also in Arabic, it's similar to Ustek. Ustek is your story. And I think that this center is doing very beautiful things. I think the pinnacle of what the municipality is doing today in East Jerusalem is what Ahmed is doing in Inar, and I have the privilege of cooperating with Ahmed in Inar, and it's really such a beautiful grassroots work that is being done with the Arab young adults of Jerusalem amidst many challenges. Ahmed, maybe if we have time later, Ahmed can tell you how a simple chess tournament can turn into chaos, but this is the everyday life and challenges. We are very privileged to have Ahmed leading in our center. And we are very proud of that in the municipality. And I think one very interesting thing that happened this year is the investment in the Ramadan. The Ramadan month is usually, traditionally in Jerusalem, in the last, 2 decades, the Ramadan, which is supposed to be celebrated as a month of peace, of tolerance, of prayer, of coming closer to God, of fasting, of families coming together, of celebrations like, Jewish and Christian holidays, and like the Ramadan everywhere in the world. In Jerusalem, in the last 2 decades, at least, this is what I know, I didn't live before, the Ramadan is a very violent term. It's a month of clashes between Jews and Arabs in general, and between Arabs and the Jewish police and the Israeli police. And what I think is, and this year was calmer, and it has also to do with policing. Nobody should be naive about the Middle East for a second, but it has also a lot to do with the fact that the Jerusalem municipality has invested an historical sum of money in Ramadan celebrations. Now, one must understand that politically, to have the Jerusalem municipality investing in Ramadan celebrations is unheard of. And we have invested 4.5 million shekels, which is a good start, and it's 4 times what was used to be done. And I want to keep on expanding that, because I think it had a very, very good impact on what happened during Ramadan, and I think this is very important. Looking forward, what I try to do is making sure that every problem that reaches me, we solve. Some of them are very, very basic problems. Some neighborhoods in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, do not have running water properly or do not have sewage. And some of them doesn't have a nice infrastructure. Some of them are missing schools. Some of them are missing roads. So this is what I love about being the municipal government, is that I get to deal with things that are everyday, very clear, to the point, non-political necessarily problems that we are able to solve very, very fast. And I like doing that. And Leah mentioned the Encounter grants. I had the privilege of being on an Encounter journey a few months ago, and when they said they have grants, I had just the project to give them. And I'm very glad that my proposal was accepted. And this proposal is, well, I have it going for some time now, that I have a team in my office. And mind you, again, this is a Zionist politician office that has an Israeli flag in it, okay? And I'm very proud to be an Israeli. I have a team in my office of young activists from Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem who I encourage to take responsibility on their neighborhoods and on their surroundings and bring problems that could be solved. I really believe this has no political gain for me. Again, they do not vote. And people tell me, and this morning a friend told me that I'm wasting my time, but I don't believe it's a waste of time, because I believe that these simple small steps, that they are crucial. Those small steps, once a young Jerusalemite from an Arab neighborhood managed to raise awareness to a problem and to create a proper bus stop, to fix the sidewalk, to create lighting at night, maybe even to promote building a nice garden for children to play in the neighborhood, maybe even to create something else. I really believe this changes the way they feel. And both Ahmed and Suna spoke about a sense of belonging. And I think that once you have done something, you have made something physical happen in your city, you by definition feel more at home. And you feel that you have the agency to make a difference and to make a further difference. And this is what I try to do with this team. And I hope, and one of the beautiful initiatives that already came is that a guy, his brother is deaf, and he saw that there is a need for a course to teach the sign language in Arabic in Jerusalem, and we were able to make it happen. And this is one example, one silly example, but it's one example. And I think that if we will have 100, 200 examples like that, I think we can see beautiful things happen. So this is what I have to say, I think.
Thank you so much, Adir. We only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that Suma and Ahmed, that you have a chance to share a few closing thoughts. So what I want to ask you is, first of all, if you have any, if there's anything that you want to, respond from what Adir said, a couple sentences, and also what you want to leave this group of American Jews who are coming, in the day after Yom Yerushalayim, but connected very much to Yom Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem Day, who are coming to listen to people who are really looking at the whole city and at trying to make the city a place for all of its inhabitants, all of its residents. What do you want to ask from American Jews? What is your hope from American Jews who care both about Israel and also about all of the people who live here? So maybe Suma will start with you.
Yes.
And then we'll go to Ahmed.
I want to say thank you so much to Adir. It's interesting to hear from the other side. I know Jerusalem municipality. I heard what you said about, let's say, Ramadan and putting, let's say, 4 million budgets. Yes, lightening the Ramadan lights around the city is great. And we love it and we always speak about it. But at the same time, from Palestinian perspective, lightening the streets and make it beautiful for us, or not allowing us to pray, which is one of the main, let's say, elements in our Ramadan month, the 4 millions, it does nothing to us. It doesn't affect us. I truly appreciate it. I truly understand what you're saying. But at the same time, you cannot let us taste chocolate and take the chocolate bar from our hands and not even give us a piece of it. As Ramadan is a great example. Yes, we see the streets, we know everything. But at the same time, the municipality is trying, but at the same time, the policemen, they are destroying everything that you're trying to do. The Silicon Valley, you're speaking about it. I know about it. It's exactly near to my neighborhood. We're gonna be a great project. But at the same time, you're building it Palestinian lands. And for us as resident in Sheikh Jarrah, we're always scared if the Wadi al-Joz area where they are asking people to leave by court already, notes from court, they are supposed to leave those lands, and the municipality is in the Silicon Valley. We're always scared, this is gonna be, they'll take other land. They took this piece of land, they'll take the which is my, which is Sheikh neighborhood. I've been since 2021 to keep it for my dad, and instead of flying and traveling around the world and getting married, I spent a year at streets thinking and supporting, and way that's how I got involved with Cantor, and I met the people, because I felt, I truly, every time I speak, I tell people I have the right to get married, to have to fly around the world, to go, and instead of standing speaking to people. I love you people. I love when I speak with people, but at the same time, my right is not. It's a basic, simple right is to keep. So I know the municipality is doing a lot of things. I know this. We know, all of us. We know that the municipality is trying, but at the same time, I told you, you cannot let us taste the chocolate and take the bar from our hands. What do we?
Suma, just because we have, what you wanna, just because I want to make sure we have a couple minutes also for Ahmed.
I'll just tell you something. Being at this school, is something. Is showing you care about Jerusalem. What Adir said, every day is Jerusalem Day. We always celebrate Jerusalem in different ways. I would say, but that's something supporting and helping us to change a little bit at, let's say, government now is be very helpful. Supporting and encouraging, yes, I would say definitely, especially for them, especially with some people around. As I said, being at the school is something for us. Is a taste, is a for us that you want to do things. So joining such calls, listening to Palestinians, hearing from the other side, that's something that we truly appreciate. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me to this call, Leah. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Adi, for being there. Inshallah, we'll speak soon.
Thank you, Suma. And Ahmed.
Well, let me start by thanking you all for being here today. It's very refreshing. I feel actually lighter coming out of this call, and I think it's good to know that there are people out there beyond the realms of Jerusalem who still care about the city and about all the people of Jerusalem. I don't want to say so, I just want to say that I actually voted for Adir without knowing Adir. And I'm very happy that I did. And if I actually think that I have a lot of things to disagree with Adir and a lot of people at the municipality or Israelis in general, but I think that this should be the core of what Jerusalem is, where differences are allowed and differences should not mean distance and fear. They actually should mean, public discourse, coming together and actually working for the city. This is what Adir and I do, and I appreciate this and I love this. And if I get the opportunity to help Adir become the next mayor, I'll do that. I'm saying it publicly, and I think this should be one of the first things we do in the next few years. What should American Jews do to help support change towards any form of positive change in Jerusalem? Let's start by what we did today in the beginning. Listen deeply and widely, beyond headlines, beyond familiar narratives. I think this is very important, and this is what we're doing today. I think we should also support organizations that build civic infrastructure, education, youth leadership, shared society. This is very important. And use our influence to protect civic spaces, freedom of speech, and the rights for both Palestinians and Israelis to live in dignity. This is what I believe. Building up on that, I think we should be cautious about not romanticizing dialogue over real justice, but we should not give up on human connection. This is fundamental, in my opinion. And we need to stay engaged when things get uncomfortable. I think somebody said in the questions and in the comments, they said that we cannot know the other without engaging with the other, and you're absolutely right. Without having the courage to do so, you're missing out on the opportunity of your life. I remember when I went to Hebrew University, I barely spoke Hebrew before I went there. I learned Hebrew in 9 months, and then I was thrown into this large lecture hall, and I started listening, and people were coming in, and I just wanted to participate, unlike many of the Palestinian and Arab students there that just want to, keep their head down, maintain a low profile, and just, graduate at some point. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be engaged, and it meant actually standing out in the nude for all the Israeli, students and fellow students to ask me all these, sometimes demeaning questions or weird questions. And I said to myself, it's okay. They're learning about me. I'm probably the first Arab they spoke to in their entire lives. And I should be that person that gives them the door, the window to who I am and where I come from. And maybe this is where the change starts. And I think, today, everyone is wrestling with what it means to love Jerusalem. I mean, I do. I wrestle with that every day. And I think that in this case, love means committing to the people of Jerusalem, not only to its stones. Thank you.
Leah, if I can
Thank
add
you so
word.
much.
Leah, if I can add a word.
2 sentences.
I'm so sorry, Adir. We've actually gone past our time. But we are so grateful, Leah, Ahmed, Suma, Adir, so grateful to every one of you for bringing your perspective, for bringing your presence, your time to us. And most of all, thank you for bringing your wisdom and your sense of possibility. We are grateful to all of you for telling your story and for inspiring us. And we thank you for letting us observe Yom Yerushalayim in this way together. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for coming. And we wish you all a really good afternoon or evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Toda Rabbi.